We're going to be looking today at getting the source code and building a very simple SDL2 based game in C++. The game is called Starship Fontana. It's a game that we use as the base of the software that we use on a module at the University of Brighton Computer Science Games degree course. Just in case you stumbled across this video not knowing what it is, University of Brighton, we're a university in the southeast of the UK. We are the oldest computer science degree in the UK. We've got a strong reputation in the research area where I particularly research in visual languages, and as I said, this video is explaining how to build the software that we use as part of the computer science games degree course at the University of Brighton. So first things first, we want to get the source code for Starship Fontana. Then after that, what we're going to look at is building the source code for Starship Fontana. Then we're going to look at how we run the executable file, the binary that's been output from that process. Now, obtaining the source code is not as straightforward as simply visiting a website and downloading the source code. We use a tool called Git, which is a source control tool, which allows us to manage changes to our software over time. To use Git, we're going to use the command line. It's going to be the Git command. We're going to give it the parameter clone and then tell it where to clone it from. In this case, we're cloning it from a public repository that I've made on a web service called GitHub. So if I go to the command line now, you'll see I'm right here on a terminal. I can type git space clone and then type in the URL, which is https www.github.com / my name Aidan Delaney / Starship Fontana. This will, when I hit return, go off and find the Starship Fontana repository on GitHub and download everything, including all the previous changes. I can then change directory space into Starship Fontana. It's just created this directory for me. And if I want to have a look around, I can do a directory listing. You can see that there are 3 directories: an assets directory, a source directory, and a tests directory, and 3 files. One of them is a license, one of them is a make file, and the third one is the readme.md file. The readme file is the thing that you probably need to read if you want to build this source code. It gives all the instructions that I'm giving here in the video. But you can have a list what's in the assets folder. Unsurprisingly, these are assets associated with the game. In this case, they are PNG files that are used for the sprites in the game. If I list the tests folder, you'll see that there's some test code in there. It's not all there, I don't think, just looking at this right now. And we can list the source folder. And you can see that there is a bunch of classes in there in C++. Right, so what we've done is we've obtained the source code for Starship Fontana using Git, our source control tool. Next, what we want to do is build Starship Fontana. The 2 things to note about Starship Fontana is that it is C++ 11 source code, so it requires C++ 11 compiler. And the second thing is that we need the SDL2 and the SDL2 image libraries installed on your system. To build the source code, I'm going to use my compiler of choice, which is the GNU C++ compiler, G++. I'm going to give it the parameter -c to tell it to compile things, and then I'm going to give it a list of all the files that it needs to compile. To this, I'm going to give it an expression source star.cpp. So find everything that ends in .cpp in the source directory and compile it. I also need to give it another parameter, ---- standard equals C++11, to tell the GCC compiler, the G++ compiler, to build with the C++11 standard. Executing that can take a little time depending on your machine, and if I do a directory listing now, we'll see that those source files, the .cpp files, have been compiled into object files. We need to link these object files together and against the system libraries in order to produce an executable. To do this, I'm going to call GCC again. I'm going to tell it what I wanted to do is output an executable file, and I'm going to call it Starship. So -o says the next parameter is going to be the name of your output file, and I want to link all the .o files, star.o, and link please against SDL2, and link please against SDL2 image. Now, because SDL2 libraries, libsdl2.so and libsdl2_image.so are in well-known places on the system, it should be able to find them by just saying -l SDL2 and -l SDL2_image. So, we have now gotten the source code, we have compiled it, we have linked it, and you can see, if I do directory listing, that there is a output file called Starship, which is usefully highlighted in bright green here to show that it's executable. Finally, after building it, we need to run Starship Fontana. The output file is called Starship. It's in the current directory, so from the current directory, please execute Starship for me. And you should see something similar to this on screen. Now, we know from in class that this is a very simple and silly game. In fact, it's not particularly playable at all, but it's a good base for future development. I'll close that down. So finally, to conclude, we do use Git as our source control tool of choice. We will be using this for the rest of the semester. I highly advise that you read the Git Novice thing that I linked to in our introductory tutorial. This game is very, very simple. It's a good base to extend, but it is very, very simple in itself, so it doesn't look particularly impressive. It's a good example of C++11 and SDL2. So we're using modern version of the C++ language, and we're using the latest, greatest release of the SDL libraries. I mean, we can do some really interesting stuff based on this. So, for the moment, thank you for listening. If you want to get in contact with me, my email address and my Twitter handle are on the slide, as you can see. Thank you very much.